Jasmine, Claire, thank you so much for coming. Can I start off by asking you what made you come out here today?
Just an interest in trying to get people a different perspective on MGTOW and the red pill and all that kind of things. Also kind of a weird fascination I have with talking with people who I believe might be a little bit hateful, and trying to figure out why they believe a certain way.
Yeah, sure. What about you, Claire?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, pretty much the same as you. Yeah, interesting to think about why people think the way they do. And I think all this stuff to do with the red pill is a perfect example of that. And also after doing the first video, I felt that I wanted to express my views more because I don't feel like I had the capacity to do so in the other one I was in. So, yeah.
Yep, sure. Alright, let's start at the start. How did you first come across the red pill, Jasmine?
YouTube. Just wandering and spending hours wasting my life away in my bedroom just watching YouTube videos, and I just stumbled across it and I was like, oh my god, what is this? And then I just watched even more and more and more of it. And I was just, after that, just one day I was just like, you know what, this is a bit, I'm just going to back out a little bit. So yeah, that's how I sort of got into it. Around like maybe 2015 was when I first heard about it. So yeah.
Yep.
I actually first heard of it when I saw you at uni, and you approached me, and I think I was with some other women, and they did a video with you. I think you asked me to, and I said no because I had no idea what the red pill was. But I actually went home, and I don't know if I watched the red pill documentary then, but I watched videos on it. My boyfriend and I talked about it a bit, so I sort of opened my mind to this thing I'd never heard about. And then a few days later you approached me again, and I said, oh, I saw you the other day, and we did the interview.
I was so impressed because I remember you said to me, I heard that you talked about the red pill, and I went home and I'd researched it, and I was like, wow, that was amazing. And I was like, oh, well, you have to do an interview. I'm so excited to talk to you. Because so few people, when I do these interviews, have heard of the red pill. Like, still, it's not broken through to the mainstream. Probably 1 in 30, I'd say, would be my odds. So, yeah, speaking to both of you, I was really excited. I was like, all right, we're starting from some basic kind of knowledge of it. So what was your first impression of the red pill? Like, what did you think of the things that you were seeing on YouTube or reading? Or
I found it shocking, to say the least, in that I'd never come across something like that, which was obviously why it spiked my interest and made me want to watch more. But I mean, as an overall impression, I think that while some of it is truthful and is actually reasonable advice, a lot of it is like half-truths that get skewed and pulled into a certain way that is not true. Like, they get pulled to the wrong conclusions and the wrong motives of women, that kind of thing. But of course you always have to start from a base of truth, or a certain level of truth, in order to captivate such a large audience that it has become.
Sorry, is this what I think of it now, or what I did?
No, your first impression.
My first impression, okay.
So the first sort of research I did on it was on YouTube, and I don't remember the names of channels that I looked at.
I remember you mentioned to me Sandman, who's a MGTOW channel, and Expaladoc.
Okay, yeah.
And I found them kind of shocking, I think, or the commenters on them. I then watched the Red Pill documentary, and that changed my perspective on it. I know that's men's rights activists, and I agreed with a lot of what they were saying, and I could see the struggles of these men and what they were trying to achieve by being men's rights activists. So yeah, I supported it, and I actually began to question how I could be a feminist and also support these men's rights and their struggles, which I felt a little bit defensive towards.
So did it seem like one or the other to you? Like,
it did at first. It was kind of challenging because, you know, we have these identities, and we're taught, you know, we've got one identity, but it's not quite true. We have many different ones, in my opinion, that we change depending on context, depending on the ideology we want to see the world through at the time. Yeah, and I did kind of think it was one or the other at that point. That's
And now?
since changed.
Okay.
Changed, yeah. I'll talk about it further when we talk about feminism, I think.
Okay, so
Yeah.
right now, this moment, sitting here in this house, do you consider yourself a feminist?
Yes, more than ever since I discovered the red pill. Before, I was kind of like, yeah, I'm a feminist, because that's what I'd been taught I was.
Like de
kind of
facto,
just-
right?
Yeah, like,
Sort of like growing up Christian because your parents are Christian, that kind of thing.
yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, I am. I mean, my mum never said it or anything, but I think it was more the culture that I was around. But it wasn't until watching all this red pill stuff and questioning, can I be a feminist and watch this, that I decided, going through this process, that feminism was important to me. Because a lot of the struggles, I saw these people who took the red pill, believe in that sort of ideology. MRAs, these are, in my opinion, problems that feminism is trying to combat. The ideology, okay, it's not perfect in the way it plays out because we're humans, right? But yes, I think these men need feminism just as much as women do.
Okay, so we'll have to get you to define feminism, because I'm
Yeah.
guessing that people watching this will be like, how will men need feminism?
Okay,
So
yeah.
what does it mean to you?
It means gender equality.
Okay, so do you have a problem with it being called like one gender, pronoun? Like having femme in it if it's for everybody? Like, does that seem like an issue to you? That men take issue with that.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Okay.
I can see how it might come across as it was made by women for women, but just because it was made with that in mind, it doesn't mean that men don't suffer under patriarchy. I believe they completely do. And a lot of the issues that men were talking about, like this, I know MRAs are big on divorce rights and who gets the children after that. Well, why is it that women are always the ones getting the kids after a divorce? Is it because feminism's taken over the world and they're favouring them? No, it's because under the patriarchal system that we live in, men aren't given the role of caretaker of children. They're given the role of provider. They're expected to make the money, not have a connection with their children. So that's something that I believe feminism is trying to tackle. That's just one example of where I think their belief system is kind of skewed.
Yes.
Okay, I think it will be a challenge in the future to potentially change words like patriarchy and feminism to be more all-inclusive. But that's probably a longer discussion. Jasmine, do you consider yourself a feminist?
I don't go by the term feminist. I believe that women should be allowed equal opportunities and be seen as equals amongst men, as men should be seen equals amongst women. However, I do think that it does put the blinds up on a lot of women's issues and a lot of men's issues, because you have to sort of think, while it's a movement for equality, they are doing it from the perspective of usually first world women. Doesn't really matter their race, because whenever I hear about intersectionality?
Yeah.
Intersectionality, it's always, but what about me? And it's always that return to self. And I think if you want to help women, the women that you could help the most would not be in Australia or in Canada or in America or Britain or Norway or whatever, but it would actually be women in actual, real struggles that are much more pervasive in their everyday life. Places like the Middle East, places like Africa, places like Asia, perhaps, parts of Asia.
Don't think you'll find many people disagreeing with you on that. Like, women still have it really rough in lots of parts of the world. And when I think that people from the Red Pill movement criticize feminism, they're talking more specifically about the modern kind of rise of third wave feminism, which you see now. But I can already hear what some people in the comment section are going to say is
Yeah,
that we're
definitely.
trying to talk about men's issues, and right now,
We're talking
already
about
the
women.
conversation's been diverted onto the problems faced by women. So I'm going to do my best to
Yeah.
get off that track. And I want to
Yeah,
ask you
yeah.
guys, specifically in the world of dating and relationships, who do you think has the upper hand, men or women?
I think that depends on what stage of the relationship you're at, and a lot of different factors, sort of like what are each of their personalities, what stage of life are they in. Of course, in the beginning, men are supposed to be the ones who go and ask a woman out, which gives the power to the woman because she has the ability to decline or accept the offer. But I think if you're treating relationships like a power struggle, that's not a healthy relationship to be in. Yeah, that's my view personally.
What about you, Claire?
Yeah, I do not know the answer to that question. I can't say it's always men, it's always women. It's just...
All right, well, let me share my perspective, and we'll see what you guys think about it. It seems to me that in the early parts of a relationship, women have the upper hand because in terms of supply and demand, men are just absolutely crazy to have sex, you know, and women as the gatekeepers of that basically have an abundance of male attention, and it's exacerbated by social media and stuff. But in the long term, it seems like men have a lot more power in terms of deciding whether or not the relationship's going to continue, whether or not it's going to be casual, or whether or not it's going to be long term. At the moment, though, in the red pill kind of lens of the world, they'll say that even in that long-term stage, men have lost the power of even deciding how long relationships have go, because over the past 50 or so years, laws in the Western countries have changed so that men no longer have that power even of being the provider in relationships, because divorce laws will guarantee that, you know, a lot of his money will be transferred over to her, so she can call it quits any time and still be financially provided for. She might get full custody of the children, and even if she doesn't work, we have welfare systems in place so that she doesn't even need to be a man. And so from the beginning of a relationship, the middle and the end, from the red pill perspective, they're saying men are basically powerless and the women have the upper hand in all these things. What would you say to that?
That's a lot to take in.
Does it seem accurate or outrageous?
Doesn't seem accurate to me. Seems like a big conspiracy theory.
I think that because women are naturally pickier, because we have to be, we're the ones who will eventually, for the sake of evolution, need to carry a child and need to supply food for that child through the mode of breastfeeding for a year or two. So obviously we have to be much pickier, which would mean that men would be at a disadvantage. Because, I mean, have you seen that experiment that they've done on college campuses where they get a man and a woman to go out into the college campus and just ask random men and women to have sex with them?
Yeah, I've seen that.
And
Yep.
the man in the situation is usually left completely on the streets and just like, oh, nobody wants to have sex with me.
Yep.
And the woman's got like plenty and plenty of opportunities to sleep with a man. So I mean, definitely, like in that situation, the woman would have more power, and that would be skewed as well with the state of the divorce courts at the moment, with women. I am losing words.
We'll find them. Hiding it somewhere.
With women being more likely to have custody of the child, and you know, the 50% thing. I don't know if they do that in Australia. You know, dividing up assets by 50. They do that here.
It's quite complex.
I
though.
don't know anything
It
about
depends on a
divorce.
few
I'm
factors.
19.
I think Australia's laws are a little bit more sophisticated than what
Yeah.
you'd see in North America, but I
Yeah.
don't know the specifics.
Yeah.
I think we can move on from that. It's probably just important to understand that on the whole, if you're looking at the anger that you'll see coming out of the Red Pill movement, it's from this feeling of disempowerment. And specifically when we're talking about MGTOW or like the Red Pill like subreddit kind of community, it's feeling that sense of powerlessness in all areas, that women basically have it better, that's caused things to be the way that they are. So whether or not you agree with it or not, this is the male experience as experienced by those men. Then you'd find a whole host of what they call blue pill men who would potentially disagree, and the red pill has their own explanation for why the men disagree. They say men don't want to disagree with that because women will hear them and then shun them and they won't sleep with them. So we just need to agree with women on everything.
I still disagree that men are completely powerless in relationships. There are often times where, because men are usually the people who make more money in relationships anyway, so staying with them is beneficial for the women, just for the sake of having the safety of having someone that provides, even though they might be toxic. I don't know. I'm not saying that men are toxic. I don't want you guys to think that I'm saying men are toxic, but it's one of those things that lets up in situations where a relationship may be toxic. That might be one of the factors as to why a woman might stay in a relationship, is just the fear of losing wealth.
That financial support. And that absolutely was one of the main reasons why a lot of women would stay in marriages like in the 40s, 50s, 60s. It just was unthinkable. Whereas it would seem like the laws now actually facilitate people getting out of toxic situations, and they'll be taken care of, whether it's through the divorce settlement or through some kind of welfare system. But I'm going to ask a question that I pretty much have assumed, but neither of you on a personal level are expecting a man to take care of you in your life, or are you? Like, you hope to marry into a rich guy and then your life is kind of set?
No. Why would I be in university right now?
Yep.
You know, that kind of thing. If that was my ultimate goal, I wouldn't be in university. I'd be trying to get into situations where I'd be in front of rich and powerful men all the time. You know?
Instead you're speaking to me.
Instead I'm at university and trying to find a way to make money for myself and not have to rely on other people, because I think at the moment that you allow a man to pay for your life, allow a man to do that, you're sort of giving up part of your own power as well, and you don't want to do that if you want to be seen as an equal.
Yep. What about for you, Claire?
Yeah, I've never thought of having a man provide for me. I've always just, I'm doing it myself. You know, it's never been a question in my mind. I know some women that joke about it.
Yeah, I definitely joke about it, but like, never serious.
Yeah, but I'd say that's what I think. And all the women in my life, for them it's the same.
So there's an old saying that says we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are, you know. And so for you guys, never having questioned the assumption that you're going to be strong, independent women and sort of make it on your own, it might be difficult to imagine that there are women out there who genuinely kind of plot and plan to secure a man and sort of set up their lives. Now, a lot of people have come into the red pill community because they've had encounters with like very such women. Like, I'm just curious to sort of cover this. Do you think women like that absolutely do exist, or do you think that men are making it up? Or
No, they do exist.
I completely
Gold diggers
believe that.
exist.
Yeah.
have you seen the YouTube prank videos for gold diggers where...
I have seen them, they're kind of hilarious.
Oh god, they're so cringing, I can't stand
I
it.
haven't seen it.
Alright, so what happens is a guy, you know, dresses really bad, he comes up all awkward, he's like, I was wondering, you know, do you want to go to dinner to me? And she's like, no, you know, and they're usually pretty mean, you know, like, I'm a woman, how dare you come and, you know, offend me by even suggesting that we could be together.
Okay.
So he goes around the corner, puts on his Armani suits, you know, slicks back his hair or whatever, and then guy drives up like in a Ferrari or something like that, and he goes, oh, here's your car, sir, you know, and he looks like some like Persian prince, you know, all of a sudden, like some wealthy kind of dude, and the girl's like, I'm so sorry, like, you know, I've actually got some time free, you know, if you want to go out and grab a coffee. And he's like, yo, aren't you married? You said that you're the boyfriend or whatever like that. She's like, oh, it's not that serious or whatever. So, you know, in the end, he's like, no, you're a gold digger and leave it. And the girl looks, they blur the faces, so you don't know who it is, but she looks really bad. Like, how quickly she turned just because she has money. And of course, people who are adherents to the red pill philosophy look at that and say, proof. Look how shallow women are. Look how superficial.
You're actually just looking at one specific kind of woman. And I'm not saying that I'm going to go out with a homeless man, but money's not that big of an issue.
Yeah.
And to say to look at that woman and apply it to every single woman is just sort of wrong fundamentally, because you're talking about like you know how the MGTOW is a subculture of men as an overall.
Sure.
It's sort of like looking at that woman and seeing that particular subculture of women and then applying that to all women. You know, like it's not the same. There are different kinds of women from different groups of, they're different members of different groups. You know, you have women who are particularly into partying, and then you have women who aren't. And the types of people that they hang out with are typically going to affect the way that they behave, as would any group that anyone is a part of. I think I kept seeing on the red pill that men were saying that women are products of their environment. And I believe that's true, but it's not women. It's everyone's a product of their environment.
Right.
And if you're not, you're just basically claiming to everyone that I don't follow any social rules, I'm a complete savage and barbarian.
Well, it's that it's the same criticism, and like someone said earlier, you know, there might be extremes on both ends. If you've got people on the red pill saying all women are like that, which is actually a phrase.
Yeah.
AWALT is one of the acronyms. I've got a video on it coming out soon.
Yeah.
All women are like that. It's not some. It's not most. All women are like that.
I had an individual, and you know how you pinned my comment in that video, who was claiming that I was a AWALT, which I think is the addition over AWALT, where you're going, this is the type of woman who says that she's not like that, but is like that? Is that correct?
It stands for not all women are like that.
Yeah.
So claiming to be the exception, you know,
Yes.
like I'm a woman, but I fall outside of all of these established sort of evolutionary
It's
principles.
such a damning way of looking at things, I think, because then it stops being advice to get into relationships or advice about women, and it starts being dogmatic, because then you're not looking at other people's arguments just because they're saying that they're an exception, and quite often that's not actually what they're saying. Like quite often what they're saying is that some women do this, and some does not necessarily mean every other woman except for me. It just means some, you know, as in like a subgroup of women.
So did you find it really like offensive when you read that? Like,
It was quite reminiscent of do you remember in like 2014, extremist feminists were talking about, they had like the hashtag not all men.
okay, I don't remember that, but yeah.
There was a hashtag not all men that was circulating for a little bit amongst the more extreme circles of feminism, and that's sort of the same thing in the red pill and MGTOW and incels and PUAs and whatever, you know? It's damning, and it means that you cannot argue with them, because they are so they're so closed off to any new ideas from a woman just because they've switched in their head that all women think exactly the same way.
Yeah. And alright, let's move on from that. I've got a question about monogamy, and I'm curious to know your thoughts, Claire. Do you think monogamy is natural?
I was thinking about this question. Depends what you'd say natural is. When I think of natural, I think of what is the environment that I have been brought up in, and what do I think is okay? What is completely normalized for me? That is what I'm thinking of as natural. So for me personally, monogamy is natural. Now within monogamy, is it natural to be attracted to multiple people that aren't your primary spouse, monogamous partner? Yeah, I think that's completely normal.
Let me make a distinction between normal and natural, because I think it'll help the discussion. Normal is, you've given a perfect description of what normal is, you know, a culture. Natural relates to basic biology. Yeah, so biologically speaking, if you have all of those kind of attractions, and though you admit that those are like natural, then isn't a system which restricts what's natural anti-human? You know, shouldn't we have cultural institutions and expectations that support what's in the natural biology of humans?
I think it's really difficult to Sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, that's okay. No, you go.
Oh, okay.
I don't know
So
what I'm saying.
From an evolutionary perspective on things, I don't know. I can't claim to know if I know that if monogamy is natural or unnatural, but I can perhaps give sort of like things that I know about monogamy and polyamory that I've sort of just read and heard about and learnt. So I know that monogamy and marriage are really great constructs in order to raise healthy, emotionally stable children, because there have been plenty of studies done on maternal and paternal deprivation that shows that children who have divorced parents are more likely to be of reduced intelligence and delinquency in adolescence and increased aggression, that kind of thing. I think I could be completely wrong in citing the psychologist, but I think it was Rutter. I could be completely wrong, so like, I'm sorry. But then you have this situation with polygamy, where it's been observed in many different cultures and countries that in situations where there is an equal balance of men and women, and polygamy, for instance, is favored, so one man dating multiple women, it leads to increased aggression in all the other men because there is such high competition for those women. So they can't have relationships with women, and they can't continue their lineage and that kind of thing.
It's a fascinating idea. Like, it's an all or nothing, so the stakes are really high. Like, you're either going to get 50 women, all the young girls of the tribe, or you're done.
Dead.
Nothing.
Although I do think that in certain contexts polygamy is probably beneficial. So in certain contexts when there have been wars that have killed off a lot of the men, or perhaps different situations where maybe women may be less plentiful. I don't know. Lots of deaths in childbirth. I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
It could be beneficial for one or two of them, either one of them, to exist in order to maintain genetic diversity in the offspring and carry on the line that way. But that's about as far as I could ever narrow it down to. I don't know if it's natural to be monogamous or to be polyamorous.
Well, I'll give you the red pill perspective so you can make a comment on it. So essentially, that women benefit from monogamy, that it's in their best interest to have a situation where, because women are more naturally monogamous, but men are more naturally attracted to multiple kind of people. So we have a system that is set up to, a social kind of cultural system that sets up one gender to kind of have their biological imperative. Right, I've secured my man, he's not going to run off with a bunch of other women, he's going to provide for me. That's good for women. Whereas the man's like, well, I actually have natural biological impulses to go and find all the daughters from around the village, you know, but I can't do that because of this system, so I'm kind of getting screwed here. And they have a thing called plate theory, which is, you know, a man seeing multiple women spinning multiple plates, you know, like that. So what do you think of that?
What do I think of it? What was the question earlier you asked?
Is monogamy natural?
And you said something about
Men
because it's not natural, why shouldn't we have our whole system based around sort of more polygamy? Is that correct?
Sure. Or why don't we have a system that supports the male biological imperative?
Why don't we have
like,
so
a better question is monogamy natural? Is it fair?
Is it fair?
Yeah.
well, neither party is supposed to stray. And I mean, we all have wandering eyes. We don't have to act on them. I think it all has to do with self-control. Women are just as likely to cheat as men. And I think that's the red pill movement believes that women are more likely than men to cheat.
You disagree with that?
I disagree with that. I just think that historically, women have had more home-based roles, which gives them less opportunity to be able to meet new people, and men had more out in the world type roles where they did get to meet more people. so they had more of an opportunity to cheat, whereas women did not. And now we have the situation where women are go to work just as much as men do, and are not confined to the home environment, that they have the same opportunity to cheat. And I don't think that we're hardwired to sort of just like, I don't think women are more hardwired to cheat than men are.
What the red pill perspective would be is that because men's power has been overt historically, they've been the kings, the politicians, the chiefs essentially, they kind of achieve their means by direct action. You know, it's all kind of upfront and out in the open, honest essentially. Whereas because women have had to exercise their power more subtly, because otherwise they get caught and get beaten up, it's been more socially kind of manipulative, you know, in trying to get other men maybe to do their actions for them. And so the theory goes in the red pill community is that women are more comfortable being deceptive because of everything that they've been through. You know, historically, they are more comfortable lying, not just to others, but also to themselves. Men are simpler, more logical, more kind of straightforward. And cheating being, you know, a pretty horrible thing to do, to lie and to sneak around and stuff like that, is something that a woman with her nature would be more comfortable doing, rather than a man who might be just kind of too simple or too stupid to get away with it, perhaps.
I think plenty of people in power, men in power, are huge liars. You can lie to get into power.
And let's just look at
see how that.
They seem to be getting caught a lot at the moment, these men. Perhaps.
The amount of people that the British royal family had to manipulate in order to just get to the top and to the top and to the top again is just sort of like, it shows you that men can be manipulative as well. And you're just, I don't know, this is such a weird argument. Like historically doesn't necessarily mean that you've been evolutionarily wired. I mean, did anything kill off the women who were not manipulative?
Maybe they
were just honest people, you know, maybe they were like not crappy people, I don't know. You know, I don't know if this is coming through right.
Alright, well, let's look at another instance where the red pill would say that women are more comfortable being deceptive. I don't know if either of you guys saw my video on orbiters, but the red pill community has an idea that women will keep men in orbit. Not men that she intends on having a relationship with or ever being sexual with, but the kind of friend-zoned guys who are there to kind of pay for dinners, you know, boost her self-esteem, tell her she's pretty, like her Facebook photos, things like that. Now, saying that women are quite comfortable leading men on because they can see the benefit for themselves. And they have difficulty believing that men would be comfortable, or maybe even making it possible, to have a kind of harem of friend-zoned women around them for that same kind of purpose. And in the comments to that video, people would say, look how comfortable women are exploiting the men. Look how little regard they have for the guys. Look how exploitative and how little empathy they can show for what it's like being the men.
Okay.
And they would point to that phenomena as evidence of some kind of psychological darkness that exists inside the female psyche.
Okay.
Women are people that have many friends that they share emotional sort of baggage with and talk to on that emotional level, whereas men usually rely on their partner, so the girlfriend or whatever, to do that. So just because women have other men around them, it doesn't necessarily mean they're exploiting them. It means that women share their emotions, their feelings, have these sort of deep friendship, platonic relationships with multiple people. I think that's just being misread as just because they're a man, you know, you can't be friends with a man. It seems like that sort of thing.
I might take it on a different grain, and then I'm going to say that there are women who do have orbiters, and my theory is that, because I don't meet very many women with orbiters, because there's so many prerequisites to having them. You have to be manipulative, for one thing. You have to be beautiful or flirtatious.
I don't think you necessarily have to be beautiful.
I think you do. I don't think ugly women get very many orbiters.
I'm going to agree with Claire on this one. I think the sheer strength of male desire out there, and desperation for sex means that even girls you wouldn't consider pretty can still point. But no, please go on.
What I've seen with my friends and things like that, the ones with a lot of orbiters are beautiful people.
Okay.
And usually very flirtatious and able to keep a lot of things in the air. I mean, an orbiter is essentially just a plate with no sex, you know? But my theory is that this one person can have so many orbiters that it affects a lot of men. So I mean, just because like the women might be the perpetrators of orbiting, it doesn't mean that every woman has a sort of like line of men that she's like orbiting. It's just that the ones who do have that and who are manipulative and who don't care about men's feelings and who are particularly flirtatious are the ones who have 10, 20 or so orbiters at a time. And she can go through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of men over several years, and having that kind of like level of people just like following her would mean that it would affect a lot of men and be like, oh yeah, I've experienced that, but really they've just experienced that one awful woman who's done that to a lot of men. So that's my take on it. Because I have a friend who, well, I had a friend, I'm not her friend anymore because she was just taking it like way too far. And I stopped being her friend for this reason, because I have a lot of male friends that she would used to just lead on and take advantage of all the time. And I was like, you know what, I don't want to be part of this. And she is always surrounded by men, and she's always orbiting at least 5 people, even when she's in relationships. So I mean, like,
you got to be frustrated because they're giving all women a bad name, right? Like, because this is the male experience.
This is one woman.
It's an interesting point that you bring up, that the kind of, it might be a certain type of woman that men are seeing, you know, the kind of woman who would be comfortable sort of orbiting. They're the kind of women that might attract them. But I want to go back to something you said, Claire, because you just mentioned it briefly, that there's a silly idea that men and women can't be friends.
Yeah.
Now, one of the criticisms that the red pill community levels at women is an inability to empathize with the male experience. And the idea of intergender friendship is a great way of looking at that particular theory, because from a female perspective, I don't think anybody can doubt that women can have male friends and friendly feelings towards men. But they say, at least like as long as she's like an attractive, you know, kind of person, you know, someone that you'd want to sleep with, it would be difficult, perhaps even impossible, for men to experience that reciprocal kind of feeling that men essentially would always make it sexual if given the kind of opportunity, and that from a male perspective, intergender friendship is impossible. What do you think?
No, I disagree. I think the only reason they think it was impossible is because they would be thinking, oh, I've got an emotional relationship with this woman. I've only ever had that with my girlfriends or wife or whatever. That means this must also be sexual.
It might not be a psychological thing. It might be just a biological thing.
A biological thing that I can't be friends with women without wanting sex? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that perhaps the male sex drive has a mind of its own. That,
Okay.
So what about your take on this then? Because you're a man. We can't really talk from the male perspective because we're not men, and they're right. We can't empathize. We can sympathize, but we're not men. So what's your take on this?
My take is that I think women are engaging in a willful cognitive dissonance about 90% of the time if they believe that the orbiters who are orbiting them don't want to sleep with them. I think if they were honest with themselves and looked a little bit harder, they'd see that the man's true intention in spending that much time with them is to sleep with them ultimately, or that's the point.
Isn't an orbiter, to me, is different to
A friend.
a friend?
Yeah.
An orbiter is someone where the woman knows there's some sort of, you know, he wants her. They know that. That's part of the attention and part of what they thrive.
And that's mostly the phenomenon of orbiters that the red pill would take issue with. Is it possible to have female friends from a male? Of course it is. It is possible.
Not if they're an orbiter, that's different.
No, not if they're an orbiter. But naturally, and I think that even though they might talk in terms of things like all women are like that, there will always be exceptions. But we're talking more about the kind of norm and things like that. And I think that on the whole, everyone would be a lot happier and things would be a lot healthier if we could scrap, for the most part, this idea that platonic friendships between two young, attractive people of different genders are completely normal and kind of natural. And look and say, look, in all honesty, he probably wants to have sex with her. It's fine. He doesn't have to. She might be taken or whatever like that. But to engage in kind of willful delusion is not going to be helpful and end in hurt feelings. And it often does. Friendships that could have otherwise been saved with honesty can often end in him like, I can't believe you did this. And she's like, well, I had no idea. And maybe neither of them were just looking. Like, I think women maybe should be looking a little bit more. I think men should definitely be speaking up a lot more. I think that if you've spent more than a couple of months orbiting someone and you've never spoken your true feelings, you kind of deserve what you get, right? Like, otherwise you're being just as deceptive. This is my thoughts.
I think perhaps what some women perceive as friendship, some men may perceive as, oh, I'm just an orbiter. But I mean, the whole situation of can men be friends with women, as you said, is predicated on lust. Yeah? So, I'm not a man, but I'm a bisexual woman. Can I have female friends? That would be a question. And of course, I can have female friends, otherwise I would have no friends, because everyone's either a man or a woman.
We'll never know what the sex drive is like between them, but I think that the primary chemical, someone in the comment section will correct me if I'm wrong, responsible for sexuality is testosterone, and it just occurs in much higher degrees in the male brain. I think it's difficult for women to understand just how sexual men feel all the time, and it's difficult for men sometimes to understand that women don't feel that way, but they soon learn. So I want to move on to...
If it's a situation of testosterone, then it's highest in young men, so...
Yeah.
And as it decreases, it should become a whole lot easier to become friends with women, if we're going to assume that that's...
I think that probably happens. I think that's probably how it occurs.
Yeah.
Alright, so there's a saying in the Red Pill community that says that the idea that women are romantics and that men are realists is nonsense. So it's actually the other way around, that in terms of how they experience love, men are actually the true romantics. You know, they idealize women, they pedestalize them, and they want to be loved in the same way that their mum loved them, in a kind of unconditional, supportive sort of way. And for women, love is actually a lot more like an economic kind of, you know, bargaining deal. Like, okay, so let's sign this contract, let's figure out how I can, you know, use this man's resources and set myself up. And if someone with more money comes along, I'm going to jump ship and I'm going to go, you know, be with that kind of person. What's your take on that? This kind of flip.
I don't like leapfrogging, and I don't think most women leapfrog. I think it's exclusive to gold diggers. And I think it really undervalues a lot of relationships where women don't do that.
I can see your worldview is very split into there are women like that, but you can't say all women. Is that accurate?
And I don't even think it's the majority of women.
Okay.
Like, I don't think the majority of women leapfrog. I've not seen it personally.
The red pill term is branch swinging, you know, swinging up the tree to get...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, if someone came up to me tomorrow with $1 million, or even just like built it up for a few months and was like, I have $1 million, come with me, we'll have a splendid life together.
How could you resist that tone of voice? Swoon, right?
Yeah, but no, I wouldn't leave my partner. I wouldn't leave him.
Your partner's not wealthy?
He's my age, so everyone my age is broke.
Yeah, sure.
What was the question?
Sorry.
So the question is,
Because I got like...
who are the real romantics? Is it women or is it men? Who are the realists when it comes to love?
I think it's certainly attractive to be... I think it's attractive when people can, you know, make their own means of living, you know, they're not...
Having their life together.
Yeah, just kind of, put together, and often that means having a job. That can certainly be attractive, but I think it's attractive for both men and women. You know, a woman who has herself sorted out seems to be attractive as much as a man that's sorted himself out. but that doesn't mean that, for me personally, I'm also not a tree swinger. You know, my boyfriend, he didn't have a job for ages. That's when we met. He didn't have a job. I was still attracted to him. And I certainly wasn't thinking, because I've heard that some people say, yeah, that's because you're young, and when you get a bit older, you will want someone who has more money or something.
It's called the wall. Yeah.
The wall?
The wall. So the red pill philosophy says at some point you get to 30 and you realise you can't attract the hot, studly, unemployed, bikey kind of guy who's fun to have an affair with. It's time to hook up with the computer engineer who's not very nice to look at, but he's making $100,000 a year, you know?
Well, I can't speak for other people, and I can't speak for my future self, but no, I don't feel that, because it doesn't match with any of my personal beliefs. Let alone my ones to do with men and women.
Has to do with the whole who's the realist, and women have all these criteria that needs to be fulfilled. Don't men have criteria that needs to be filled too? Like, I don't see very many 20-year-old men leering after 80-year-old women in that sense.
It's a pretty specific fetish though.
That's why I don't see very many of them. But I mean, there are criteria on both, and I mean, you don't want to end up with someone who's like mentally unstable. You do have a checklist in your mind, or at least on some level, everyone has some sort of checklist.
Well, you probably should if you respect yourself.
If you respect yourself, you're gonna be like, I don't want someone who's batshit insane to date me, or I don't want to go out with someone who is menopausal if I want to have children.
That would be a bad idea.
That would be a bad idea.
There is a section of the red pill community that's not angry about what they call hypergamy, and hypergamy is the idea that women are always after the highest, value mate that she can find, the richest, biggest chieftain kind of guy that she can get. And a lot of the people in the red pill are not upset about this. They just say, well, but we need to acknowledge that this is what women are. Maybe they get upset because women are in denial of it. Basically, that biologically speaking, women want the leader and men want the most attractive girl. Guys, women, please stop calling men shallow because we like young, attractive, fertile women, and we'll stop calling women gold diggers and shallow because they want a rich, successful guy. Like, who wouldn't? This is what is attractive. Does it need to be something that we're upset about, or can we just sort of accept that at some level those elements are at play and then move on from there? Or are we going to deny it and just say, no, it's not at all?
I think...
You go first.
Okay,
you go first.
I think at some level, maybe that's true, but it's certainly not... I feel like the people who are saying this are looking at attraction in such a black and white way. There's no shades of grey there. Okay, attraction isn't just, I want this hot girl. Okay, it's to have a relationship with. That's what we're talking about. Yeah, because you were saying the highest value man would be someone that is rich, good looking.
High social status, good physique, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There are attractive traits. We're not going to lie.
A lot of women do. A lot of women deny.
The MGTOW and the red pill philosophy concerning hypergamy, I think is exaggerated. I think it exists. I think it's exaggerated as well, because women tend to marry... The Google definition is that you... because I was looking it up and stuff, obviously, to get prepared. And the Google definition of it is just that it's dating someone who is higher class to you, or being in a relationship with someone who's higher class to you, which I think is a real thing. It is something that women look for, at least equal or a little bit higher. But I don't think it's like you have to be the cream of the crop to even be considered. That's not what I think personally. Just based on what I've seen and all that kind of stuff. There are rich guys from the school that I went to and things like that. I could have gone out with some super rich upper middle class person, but I didn't, because that's not, and I suppose finance wasn't even a strain on me as well. I was a kid when I got together with my boyfriend. We've been together for over 4 years, and so I was like still in middle school when we were going out, so obviously finance is like not like a big deal. But I mean, like if I was hardwired to be like, I want the best of the best and nothing less than the best, then I wouldn't have gone out with him, because at the time he was socially outcast. He had horrible acne at the time.
He may be watching.
He may be watching, but he's lovely, and I find him very attractive. He's got like other features about him that are really interesting. He's super ambitious, and he's super lovely to just hang around with. He's very intellectually engaging. I'm just talking about within the time frame when I was in that time, he wasn't popular at all, and he didn't come from an affluent family, and he didn't have all this stuff, you know, that all the other guys had the benefit of having, and yet I was still attracted to him. And he wasn't a bad boy either. Like he's a really nice guy.
So because you don't see that principle operating in you, it's hard to believe that it's
like, I definitely think that women are looking for men who are of equal status to them or higher, and it's unlikely that they'll look at people who are below them.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that that is the set in stone, the number one, absolutely, that is it, sort of, what's the word?
Determining factor in attraction,
Determining
right?
factor,
Sure.
yeah. And there are so many other things that can, like, if you just take care of yourself, just generally, and you have your life together, and you're ambitious, and have sort of like a plan for the future, have your life all sorted, that's way more attractive than just a douchebag, you know, who's rich. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I was with some rich douchebag, let's say he's like freaking Ryan Gosling, but Ryan Gosling the dick edition, you know, and he's just like totally tactless, totally like looks down on me as a person, that kind of thing. I would tire so quickly. I would not be able to be in that relationship, because I would just not be able to stand them, especially if there was like no real conversation happening and no shared interests. So I mean, like, there are so many factors as to why you would want a person that you want. Those are factors, but they're not the only factors, and they can be easily overrun by things that last more long term. You know, like wealth can always be taken away from you. The life that you have can be taken. Your looks will eventually be taken away from you.
Oh yeah.
There is no escaping age and death and all the depressing things. But there are other. I'm just trying to say there are other things.
Sure, okay. So one of the reasons why the whole women hypergamous issue receives so much attention in the red pill community is because of the disconnect that men have observed between women's actions and their words. So essentially, everybody's red pill like story that I've read starts in the same way. Like I wanted to be in relationships with women, so I asked them, what do you look for in a guy? And the advice they got: be nice, be respectful, be yourself. So many people, be yourself, you know, repeat it. And he's like, all right, well, I'll just be nice. You know, women know what they want, I'll do that. And then he looks over at his best mate, who's the kind of, you know, masculine prick, you know. He's calling women sluts and whores and treating them like crap, not calling them back, sleeping with them just once and moving on, and finding that he's having a huge amount of success with women. And he's confused. Why? Why are women saying that they want a guy like me, and then the guy who's doing the opposite of all of that seems to be getting all of the results? And this is like, you know, and then they read about hypergamy and they're like, right, it makes sense. You know, he wants a kind of cocky leader, you know, arrogant kind of alpha male kind of guy. She doesn't want me to be so supplicating and submissive like a beta kind of male. And so a lot of the anger that you'll experience in the red pill community, you couldn't even directly say it's because women are hypergamous. It's because of this disconnect that they have observed in their own life experiences of, I wasted 10 years, 20 years of my life being who women told me they wanted me to be, following their advice. When I threw all that advice out the window, suddenly I started having success. You know, if you want me to believe that women aren't hypergamous, then you should have slept with me 20 years ago. What do you think?
Well, I mean, being yourself, they weren't being themselves. They were pretending to be respectful, but that's not who they really wanted to be. I mean, wasn't that the primary thing?
Maybe it
I
was
get
their
why
real
they're
selves,
being
but they would rather have a relationship with a woman or be successful in dating than be
I
themselves.
totally get why
Okay.
the be yourself advice is so frustrating.
Yeah,
But
because you might just
you
not
might-
like them.
And also, you just might not have a particularly attractive personality to begin with. I'm just saying, self-improvement over self-acceptance if you're just complete crap to begin with. Like, it's sort of like, if you're being yourself and yourself is just kind of shy and reserved and sort of takes a back seat in life and doesn't do anything to improve themselves, then don't be yourself. Self-improve, 100%. You've got to be a little bit more assertive. You've got to be the type of person who's active in their conversations and the way that they approach life. You can't just expect things to be handed to you. And I think once you start to work on yourself, once you start to work on getting that career you always wanted, picking up that instrument that you've been dying to learn, and just talking to all those people that you always wanted to talk to and that kind of thing, I think people would find attraction from anyone, just general attraction towards you will be increased, and you'll have a better chance of meeting women and so on. Yeah, so I get why the be yourself thing is a bit frustrating for men, because I mean, what if yourself isn't good enough?
Sure, would you agree with that, Claire?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to have self-awareness. I mean, I find that attractive, is self-awareness and wanting to grow and not being scared of change. I think that's important to me.
I think you can't sort of like have the idea that you've got to be yourself and then also have the idea to be the best person you can be, and have those two beliefs at the same time. You
Yeah,
kind of
mutually
have to drop.
exclusive, right?
Yeah, they are mutually exclusive beliefs, and you have to drop one. And I think the more attractive one to drop would be to be yourself, and to keep the be the best person that you can be thing. Yeah, that's my take.